In Memphis, nothing comes easy, and that's exactly how we like it. This is a city built on hustle, on heart, on grit. And at Carway, our rides are built the same way. Tough, reliable, ready for the grind. No games, no gimmicks, just Memphis-style service. Real, honest, and built on trust. Where grit meets grind, you meet your next ride. Carway, grit, grind, and Pink Beetles. In Memphis, we know a thing or two about resilience. From the grindhouse to the Delta, we protect what's ours. But when pests invade your home, it's time to fight back. Grade A Pest knows how to handle what crawls, flies, and bites. With local experience and guaranteed results.
I'm Reggie with Grade A Pest Control. We service the Memphis metro area. That also includes DeSoto and Fayette County as well.
Grade A Pest has the entire Mid-South covered. So if bugs and pests put you to the test, let Grade A solve your problem. From the heart of Tiger Nation, this is where the insiders talk. Real stories, real access, and the pulse of Memphis athletics. You're tuned on beat with BCM. Now, let's get to the show.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of On Beat with BCM here on the Bluff City Media Network. I am Memphis Tigers men's basketball beat reporter for Bluff City Media, Roman Cleary, and I'm joined as always by our football insider and executive editor of the University of Memphis student newspaper, the Daily Helmsman, Sam Shoemaker. Sam, this is arguably the biggest episode of On Beat with BCM yet, considering everything that needs to be discussed and broken down today. But before we get into all of that, I'm giving you your one last opportunity. This is your one and final chance, one and final opportunity to talk about anything other than basketball. You gonna bite? You gonna take it?
Roman, I think we have an hour straight of Penny Hardaway and basketball coming, and I would be doing this pretty important episode of the show disservice if I took the liberty to talk about just about anything else. So I think we can just get right into it and talk about this entire Penny Hardaway saga. I think it's as well researched as you are with the program. It'd be cool to give context of just Penny's whole tenure and how we've gotten to this point, and then just the monologue that we got today. I think it's all important, and I think it's a story that you can bring to the listeners.
Well, I give you your chance. You've missed it. We've moved on. Memphis basketball's season ended in the American Conference tournament against Tulane a week ago today, and that already feels like a million years ago after everything that has occurred over the past 72 hours with this program. Obviously, we have the press conference with Penny Hardaway and Ed Scott that happened today, and the viral monologue that Penny went on, probably the most unprecedented raw emotion that we've ever seen out of him. But we're going to hold off on discussing that specifically for a little bit, because we first need to get to Monday and the official news that Memphis is going to retain Penny Hardaway for a 9th season with the program. This is obviously something that has more or less been, a foregone conclusion for a while now, even as the season progressively got worse and worse. There were all indications on my end, and I'm sure yours, Sam, that Penny was ultimately going to get a 9th season. I know there was some talk towards the end of the year that they were going to wait and see what happens on the court before making a final decision. And while it was true that a final decision had not been made, that more came down to off the court factors as opposed to what was actually happening on the floor. I mean, the season was what it was, and people were going to feel how they felt. This came down to number one, obviously, like who Penny Hardaway is, and we'll get into that aspect of it later on, I'm sure, as well. And also the buyout that it would have taken for Penny to ultimately get fired, if you will. It was substantial, north of $6 million. And at the end of the day, based off of the conversations that I've had, there just was not going to be a booster or a donor to step up and write the check that ultimately got Penny Hardaway fired a year after he took the Tigers to a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament and led them to the American Conference title. There just was not going to be a booster that was going to write that check. The reality is that if the coach is John Smith, and John Smith had done everything Penny Hardaway's done so far, that check is likely getting written and John Smith is getting bought out. But because it's Penny Hardaway, that is the biggest reason he's getting this opportunity. And we'll see if, that proves to be the right call. He has presented Ed Scott with this plan that involves him basically waxing the entire coaching staff. All 3 assistants, Jermaine Johnson, Mike Davis, and Roy Rogers, have been fired or let go or not retained, as has strength and conditioning coach Todd Forcier. A new general manager is going to get hired, and all this new staffing is going to get done within the next 7 to 10 days. So a lot to take away just from the official news in of itself that Penny Hardaway is getting retained here, Sam.
Certainly. Off air, Roman, you and I talked about how just things with this program are going to move fast, because me and Roman were talking about, okay, what are we going to talk about next week's episode, the whole shebang. And Roman said, well, we might want to keep talking about basketball, Sam, because I guarantee you things are going to move pretty fast. And you said it earlier, it feels like that loss to Tulane was like ages ago, because we've already gone so far, and that was and that hadn't even happened last time we recorded. And look, Penny kept his job because you talked about John Smith. If Penny was John Smith would have been fired years ago, right? This is well known. Penny still has institutional value, and I think we kind of breeze over that pretty often. It's Penny Hardaway. Understand, a lot of listeners, maybe especially who've been around in Memphis longer than I have, understand what Penny is to this city, to this school. He is Memphis sports, right? Penny Hardaway is, especially at the collegiate level. That's what Penny Hardaway is. And it's just, you talked about the indications. To me, it didn't matter. What happened on the court didn't matter. This team found new lows week to week. Honestly, they hit new levels of rock bottom week to week, yet they still, that wasn't why Penny Hardaway was or wasn't going to get fired. They called it a one-off, right? Penny called this season a one-off. He thinks he can make adjustments, and it seems like he was incredibly real and transparent with the media today, which we'll get into. I'm guessing he did that with Ed Scott and the board and all the decision makers there. He convinced them that he can change. He backed it up with a plan. And I think it's really cool that he did that. We haven't seen Penny Hardaway like this because he's already an entirely emotional character. I'm not saying that in a demeaning or bad way. Penny's always just very open and transparent about what he is and what he's about. And now it's to another level. And that, of course, makes next year a make or break year. But what they think the program can become with this new structure, with the GM, with getting rid of Mike Davis and Jermaine Johnson, who I know a lot of people in that building aren't the biggest fans of.
Yeah, he was universally disliked by
you said
players and fellow staffers alike. Now that he's been fired, I think we can be fully transparent and honest about that. It's been a not so well kept secret for years. But
you're talking Jermaine Johnson, right?
Yes, Jermaine
Mhm.
Johnson. He was a very divisive figure in that locker room for a long
Yep.
time, and it's honestly probably for the best from a culture and morale
100%.
standpoint that he's now out of the building.
I think that's actually really important. I entirely agree. And also, I think on the Mike Davis front, people love Mike Davis. People in Memphis love that Mike Davis. People in that locker room love Mike Davis. But I've had a bunch of people in the program tell me he kind of is just there. He doesn't really do much.
Yeah,
It's not that he's not. It's not that he's hurting the program, but he's kind of just there, and he's taking what $500,000 in salary a year. And I think Penny's now being entirely honest, and Penny's in a sense a people pleaser, or maybe that's a harsher term. He's loyal. He's very loyal to his guys, and Mike Davis is a great guy, really kind guy. If you spend any time around Mike Davis, you'll be like, yeah, this guy rocks. But I think Penny Hardaway is realizing it's either everyone else or it's him, and he's realizing he can't make this work unless he gets the exact right guys for help. And that's the plan. That's the plan moving forward. We'll see if it works, Roman.
Yeah. The reality is that you're right. If it's not going to be Penny Hardaway getting fired, it was basically going to be a situation where everyone else was, Penny or everyone else. That's just kind of the reality there. And it's this has been kind of an underlying issue with Memphis basketball under Penny for years, is that he just doesn't really have staff members that bring value, that really bring
That's harsh, but it's
anything,
true.
relevant or contribute anything of note that's actually going to help at all. And again, like Sam said, it's harsh, but that's just simply the reality. If you've been hearing the things that we've been hearing, honestly, for years at this point, and talking to the people that we talk to, you would understand. You would think the same thing. And that's a big part of Ed Scott going on Gary Parrish yesterday and kind of, revealing the whole, revelation, or that Penny straight up went to him and said, "Hey man, I need help. I can't do this alone anymore. I need better infrastructure, right? I need actual legitimate staff support that can help me balance and manage and navigate this modern world of college basketball that Memphis has undeniably been, up and down in overall. They've had their highs with NIL in the portal, and they've certainly had their lows as well. This year being the lowest of lows. And the truth is that Memphis can succeed in this era of college basketball. I think they can succeed in it more than than some people in this media market are framing it, quite frankly. Not to say that the hierarchy of power conferences and Memphis not having as much resources to go get players compared to those schools isn't a factor in that. It isn't important, but this is still, a multi-million-dollar budget that Memphis has every single year to build this roster. It is not more than, say, the top of the sport, top of the power conferences, but it's comparable, if not more, than the bottom power conference schools. And it's the most in the G6, and it's definitely the most, by far in the American. Memphis should still be a very successful program and a very successful team from year to year, considering the current resources it has to work with. But there need to be the right people in the building to actually help Penny Hardaway maximize these resources and help Memphis, actually be a winning team and a winning product on an annual basis. And that's where getting a general manager comes in. That's where getting more valuable assistants comes in. Guys that have, legitimate experience or just have the actual real tools to be helpful, whether that's on the recruiting trail or strategically on the court. There just really hasn't been any of that for the most part with Memphis' staff for the last 8 years, especially as of late, which is partially why you're seeing as much staff turnover from year to year as you're seeing. I mean, but once all the assistants are hired this year, it will be 17 different assistant coaches in 9 seasons, 14 in 8 seasons. That's not normal, and no one's pretending that it is or that it's even acceptable or okay. But there are reasons as to why this is happening. And this whole initiative, this whole plan that's set to be carried out by Penny Hardaway and Ed Scott, respectively, along with the rest of this program and the rest of this athletic department, it's certainly aiming to mitigate a lot of these negatives for good there.
Yeah, if you look at just the state of Memphis athletics as a whole, right? We're entering year 2 of that FedEx deal, the $25 million, $5 million a year over 5 years, given to, I don't have it in front of me, but it was just given to football, men's, women's basketball, women's soccer. Was there anyone else in that deal? I want to say men's soccer didn't get any because Title IX, because football and then women's soccer. But Penny had grassroots connections, and he got all those top recruiting classes before the NIL era, and it was the Penny Hardaway draw, right? But now, of course, we're in an era where it's money over everything. Who knows if if players are getting paid before then or not? But people, I think, don't understand or maybe gloss over the fact that Memphis should win or be in contention in all 4 of those sports every single year. That's the direction of this program. And I think Ed Scott talked about it a lot today, of just moving forward as a program. And men's basketball is really important to that, of course, shockingly. But Roman said it, this team is a multi-million-dollar roster year over year. They're going to have millions of dollars invested in this roster. So, of course, 13 wins can't happen ever again. But also, Penny, the presser today wasn't just a Penny's coming back. It was everything's changing, right? And I think just with all this money that's invested and how important Penny Hardaway is to the city, and something that I really think is important and fun to think about is, look, athletics are really important to the university. So Penny is very important, not just for the athletics in the city, but he's also important just to the city generally. Think of one of my favorite anecdotes about it is, I think LSU and Joe Burrow won the national championship in 2019 for football. And then folks applying to LSU nearly doubled, right? Because people wanted to be around that. And Penny coming back, and I say all this to say, Penny coming back is a big decision, because there is so much money on top of the FedEx money, on top of the NIL money, on top of the money the staffers are going to get paid, on top of the money Penny's going to get paid. That's just the athletics money. But understand that when Penny Hardaway has this team rocking, there is so much money in this city. And at the end of the day, everything comes down to money. And I think Ed Scott and the decision makers here trust that Penny Hardaway is going to make them money. Trust that Penny Hardaway is going to win them games. And I think, you talked about it, but I just think the gravity of this decision is a really big one. And they trust him. It shows how much trust they have in him, because someone's got to do it. Someone has to have this title that is tied up to so much money. But I think they think Penny's the guy, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, in this part of it that I'm going to bring up here should be pretty clear already, but it was made even more clear, I'd say, by what Ed said with GP yesterday, and continued into what they talked about with us earlier today. Make no mistake about it, guys. This is a do or die season. 2026, 27 will be a do or die, put up or shut up type of season for Penny Hardaway. That's just going to be, the reality here. If Memphis makes the NCAA tournament, wins the American Conference and does everything that they are expected to do on an annual basis, Penny's likely going to get extended, though he'll get a year 10, a year 11, and beyond that. Who knows where it goes from there if Penny's able to turn things around and succeed next season. But if he falls short of expectations again, and Sam, honestly, it probably doesn't even have to get as bad as it did this year. If Memphis misses the NCAA tournament at all, and doesn't win the American, I mean, this is probably going to be it for Penny. Like, they cannot afford to be in the place where they are right now as a program for long. Being in, a $1.2 million shortfall with ticket sales like they are right now, they can't be in that spot every year. Like the program cannot be actively losing money at this rate every single season. It just cannot go on. It just cannot continue like this. And again, I mean, the only reason why Penny's probably getting this chance is, because of who he is, and because, him, the individual, the person who's done what he's done for this university and for this athletic department, for this men's basketball program, and for this city over the past 3-4 decades. That person deserves this chance. And if you have a problem with that, I just don't know what to tell you. Yeah, it is certainly a debate whether Penny Hardaway, the coach, deserves a 9th season. I think you can honestly argue either way with that. Because, again, you've had your highs that I don't think have been quite recognized enough at certain points. And you have your lows that I also think have not been emphasized enough. Like, I certainly think that some Memphis fans are downplaying how bad things really are at Memphis right now, just because of their love and admiration for Penny and who he is. Like, 13-19 can never happen at Memphis. It just can't happen, guys. This is the worst season for Memphis, at least from a record standpoint, in 56 years. That's where things are. That's not just a bad season. It's a catastrophic disaster. And Penny Hardaway is going to endure that because of who he is. And he's getting this opportunity to make this right. But next year is the year where things have to get right, and they have to get right for good. Because otherwise, the dark day that I think a lot of Memphis fans are fearing, it will come true. And the reality is that that decision is probably going to be very unanimous by that point, regardless of whether this goes one way or the other way there. And I think that message, though it wasn't explicitly said at any point in the last 3 days, it's been made very clear.
Yeah, I think the verbiage that Penny and Ed Scott used today in the presser was like very indicative of, hey, this is it's now or never, right? This season has to be very successful. I hate to bring this up. Alex Simmons, you talked to her at Media Day. She essentially said, hey, I'm taking on too much. I'm bringing in the wrong players. I'm bringing in the most talented players. I'm not bringing in the players with the right fit. That's kind of exactly what Penny said today. And that's not to take a shot at either of them. That's just verbiage coaches begin to use when, hey, this next season, everything has to happen. They're putting Penny's putting big expectations on his shoulder next year, right? He essentially is. I don't have a quote in front of me, Roman. Maybe you can speak to this better, but I feel like at least the vibe of the press conference was like, next season will be a good season. And he kind of promised that, right? And he understands that if it's not, that's his job. And I think when he said, I'm willing to die for this, or I'm really willing to die for this city. That's kind of him just saying like, yeah, I'm okay falling on my sword. I'm okay getting fired. I'm okay not being the guy who steps down. I'm okay getting fired as long as I give it my best shot. And I think this next season, it's going to be everything Penny has. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah. And we've alluded to the press conference a lot. We've kind of been dancing around it. We have mentioned it a little bit, but it is about time to get to that. And we will do that in just a few minutes after this break. We will return with everything that Penny Hardaway said today. And trust me, it was a lot. We'll talk about all that and more right here on Beat with BCM.
Tired of the same old fast food? The soggy fries, the frozen flavors, the meals that never quite hit right. Head over to Waldo's Chicken and Beer, where everything starts fresh and flavor comes first. Our chicken is fried in rich beef tallow for that bold, old-school crunch you can actually taste. Don't skip the premium homemade southern sides, fresh greens, hearty white beans, and creamy mac and cheese made to complete the meal. Bring your whole family. There's plenty of space to relax, plus a game room the kids will love. Catch the game on big screens, grab a drink at the Full Bar, and enjoy happy hour specials every day from 3 to 6, all day on Tuesday and Sunday. Waldo's Chicken and Beer. Real food, real flavor, made from scratch.
I'm only looking at it from a standpoint, I don't want to let a player walk for nothing. Like, if you lose a player, to my knowledge, in an expansion draft, like, you don't get a
piggyback or nothing like that. You just lose
that's a wrap. Like, that's it. I don't think John's gonna be on this team this time next year. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things where I don't want him, if it's happening today, I don't want to just let him walk for nothing.
Yeah.
And we all know the talent that Ja is, you should probably be able to get 3-4 first. But because of the stench that's on his name around the league, for whatever the reason that that people put that out there, it's probably gonna be hard to get that. So
tune into the No Bluffing Podcast with your hosts Christian Ingram and Evan Hayes every Monday at 12 p.m. only on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Memphis, it's time to plant your flag. Join us this Saturday for an afternoon of art, college basketball, and celebrating this great city. The Plant Your Flag series is a direct response to recent national media coverage of the Memphis Grizzlies and the city they call home. Curated by Australian artist Wayne Hunt, the series celebrates all things that makes Memphis, Memphis. The people, the places, and of course, basketball. Partnered with Bluff City Media, the artworks include caricatures, odes, icons, and landmarks that set the story straight about the 901. Stepping up with that famous Southern hospitality, Grind City Brewing is proud to host the show with the city as the perfect backdrop. This Saturday, March 21st, come raise a glass with us to Memphis, basketball, and the people that make this city great.
But yeah, Penny Hardaway, of course, has been the coach of University of Memphis for 8 years. And he gets a nice one, Kenny Stubblefield. He'll get another season here at Memphis. But things are going to be a little different. I think that just off the strength that that's Penny Hardaway, you should give him another chance, right? I'm not going to say that Penny's had the best run here. I think it's been the most disappointing run. I think that he has had some good years here. Considering the hype that came behind him and some of the classes that he brought in, I expected more from Penny. My expectations have dropped as far as what I expect for him. But what we saw this year is not what I expected. When he got here, I was thinking a team that could be a possible Final Four, Elite Eight team, right? Especially with some of the caliber of players that came in.
It feels like to me that a lot of Memphis fans haven't lowered their expectations, and it feels like to me that the University of Memphis has not lowered their expectations, right? Yeah. Like that they are.
And let me say what mine are. My expectation is win this conference every year. Like it should be nothing like that's not a high mark, bro.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Monday through Fridays at 1 p.m. live on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Some dreams don't just come true, they come with 4 paws. At Puppy Dreams, we match loving families with happy, healthy puppies. From playful companions to lifelong best friends, your perfect match is waiting. And with our professional grooming spa, your pup will look as amazing as they feel. Visit Puppy Dreams today and meet the one who's been waiting just for you.
We are back. We are back. On beat with BCM, Roman Cleary, Sam Shoemaker, joining you as always. Thank you all for tuning in to the program this week. Shout out to Mass Gaining Guy. Look at him, Sam. He's making his petition to Ed Scott to be the Tigers' new strength and conditioning coach. Of course, as we mentioned towards the top of the show.
I'm in.
You know what? Todd Forcier was fired. He was let go. So we already have we have at least one candidate for that job right there.
I mean, Roman, look at the profile picture, man. Like, I'm in. Mass Gaining Guy. You have my vote. I'll talk to Dr. Scott and see what we can get going.
Yeah, no, for sure there. Shout out to everyone who engages with us in the comment section. If you're watching on X/Twitter, there's nothing wrong with that. Thank you for watching the show. But if you can, migrate on over to YouTube so you can, again, just interact with us in the comments, and we'll answer any questions you guys might have as we go on here. But Sam, it's time to get to the bombshell that we got from Penny Hardaway and Ed Scott today at the Lori Walton Basketball Family Center. We've kind of dancing around it, but it's time to really dive into everything that Penny Hardaway specifically said here earlier today. And this was obviously the first time he's made an appearance since the Tulane game. And, you know, we heard a lot from Ed yesterday, and we really got a lot of Penny's perspective today. And let me tell you, I've been covering this guy for 3 seasons now, just completed my 3rd season covering Penny Hardaway in this program. And I have never heard him quite this raw, this impassioned, this emotional. And he's always been real. He's always been honest, but not quite like this. And there's obviously a lot to dive into. This was a 40-minute press conference with Penny and Ed Scott here today. But I think what most people are paying attention to is the 5-6 minute monologue that kind of headlined this whole thing in the middle of it. So we're going to take a look at that entire thing right now, this whole 5-6 minute monologue from Penny Hardaway, and then we'll give our thoughts on everything he said on that and what else came out of this presser. Let's take a look.
Yeah, I think, and I do hope today that my words come out not as a complainer or being playing the victim of any sort, but I do understand that to me it's a one-off. You know, I've done well, whether it's been published as not doing well in the first 7 years, first 8 years or whatever. I feel like I haven't won in the NCAA tournament, but my regular season scheduling against some of the top teams around the country has been well. I'll start off with that. So it was me just trying to really grind out this season. I felt like it was the best coaching job I've done and the hardest coaching job I've done to just try to get 13 wins. But to answer your question, I think that you just got to put a product on the floor and you got to give them a vision, in my mind, that it can change and it will change. I mean, it's just, to me, this year was a one-off. Nobody liked it. I didn't like it. It was nobody wants to win for this team in this city more than me. And I just don't feel that around the city that everybody's saying we gave up on you. I think the narrative was clear from the media on what it was, but I didn't hear this from every fan at the end of the day. So I know we have work to do. I understand momentum. And, you know, I talked to Ed about that. And at the end of momentum, the U and the M being capital for the University of Memphis, we need that. But we also need help from you guys. We never post anything that I do well. I mean, honestly, I never get a lot of stuff posted well. That controls what happens around the city as well, because they're hearing from you guys. So for me, if we're going to do this together, I feel like it should be together, not just University of Memphis over here, the media over here. I feel like the entire city needs to embrace winning. If that's what everybody really wants, we want that. Why don't y'all want that? And if I'm at the helm, why does it have to go opposite? So I don't see this as separate. I see this as together. I'm 9th grade walking on this campus from Binghamton. That's when it started for the people who aren't from Memphis. 10 minutes north of here is I walked this campus before this campus even knew who I was. So that's where my heart was from the beginning. And that's where my heart is still now. So to me, to try to disrespect that and erase that and not embrace it, to tear it down when I'm looking around the country and no one else with my record is being torn down or not being embraced, I'm not going anywhere with this except for trying to tell the truth. And I'm fighting through it because I do understand that I have accountability and that I'm supposed to be paid to win. I'm paid to win games. But then the narrative is always bad. No matter if I lose one game, then it's the worst game in the world. If I win 20 in a row, I'm supposed to. It's like everything is being thrown at me, and I'm just taking it with a smile, still respecting everybody. I'm not an asshole. I had one situation with Jeff when he asked me a question at a very vulnerable time, and I intentionally went there because I meant what I said. But this point right now, man, from somebody who's a hometown guy that's fighting for this city, that really wants this city to win, nobody's hurting more than me. Getting beat up by the media on every single thing, every outlet is negative, and then I have to fight that. My mom asked me the other day, why does the city hate you? The city doesn't hate me. The city doesn't hate me. It just takes one fan to hug me and tell me that they love me, and I'm going to war for that one fan. That's just what I feel here in the city. And Coach, and it only takes, we could just talk about 298 more. You know the movie 300? We need 300 people to believe. We'll take the 5,000 on that don't believe. And we want the entire city to be together. That's what this team was built on, bro. Coach Finch and that team built it on the city. Why isn't the city together? We haven't done anything but do our jobs and try to work. It was a failed year, but we learned a lot. How do we grow from this? I'm here now. How do we grow the entire city, not just us against the media or us against a few people that want to see me gone? I feel like I'm the perfect guy for the job because my care factor is off the charts. I feel like I've done a good job of winning regular season games and not a great job of getting us where we need to go in the NCAA tournament. But I feel like with the support that he is going to give me and that they're going to give me and that they continue to give me, I just need the support of the city. So to answer his question, it's just basically, why is it always negative and not positive? That's what I want to know. I mean, that's just where I am because I don't say anything. You got to understand, to be here, to love this city, I look at this city like a 5-year-old boy looks at his mom. I love this city like a 10-year-old girl looks at her dad. Like, I really will die for this. And for people who wouldn't die for this to be able to write what they want to write and put me in a position to make me look like I'm not a good person, I'm not a good coach, I don't make any excuses for what's happened, for what I've failed at, but I know I can come back from failure. I haven't made any excuses. I see everything that's being written, it doesn't bother me. But when it starts to affect how my character is being portrayed, I've been nothing but respectful to everybody. I don't go at anybody for writing anything. I'll let you have you do your job. I've never done that. And for me to see what's going on around the country, for guys to be praised for not making an NCAA tournament in 7 or 8 years and they get another year, for guys to have one NCAA tournament win and get a P4 job in 15 years, what's wrong with me? What have I done wrong? In my city, where everyone knows that I'm going to be here after. If I'm fired, I'm still going to be here fighting for this school, fighting for this city. Y'all might be gone, but I'm going to be here. So why am I the bad guy?
Okay, so obviously a lot was said there. He blasted his media coverage a good bit. He very much defended himself. I mean, to be fair, he took accountability for what the season was and his shortcomings at certain points, especially early on in the presser. But he defended himself heavily there, even called the season the best coaching job he's ever done, which is wild. I mean, that was the tweet of mine that went the most viral. Even like Jeff Goodman quote tweeted me on that.
Hey, Roman moving up,
which is pretty wild. So that happened, and he explained and kind of broke down why he is still the best person for this job, you know, citing his passion, his history, and everything. There's a lot to dive into there, Sam, but what's your initial read on everything we just heard?
Roman, look, Penny can communicate his thoughts better than I can communicate Penny's thoughts. So I think I'm really glad we played that video for the viewers to hear, because it's really important. You know, I think a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Penny talked about the media on the road. He talked about just how his team is covered. And first, you know, as a journalist, I want to say, look, it's not really our job to care. It's not our job to care if Memphis wins or loses, because he was talking about, man, if I bought in, if the donors are bought in, if the fans are bought in, why can't you guys be bought in, right? I'm paraphrasing pretty heavily there. But the answer is that's not really our job, right? And I think most people understand that. I think Penny understands that. And with that said, as a journalist, I don't really care. With that said, I'm glad Penny said that. You know, I think one, it shows he really cares. I think it's really fun. I think media versus coaches beefs is really fun, right? Because Penny talked about how he is always really gracious to the media. He doesn't attack anyone. Like I think that's fair. Like one of us could go on a podcast and say something crazy about Penny. We could even like smear his character, which I don't think either of us have ever done or would do. But I think there's a lot of people who could do that. Penny probably wouldn't call them out. Like he would just kind of let it happen. I think that's true. Like he's very gracious. He kind of just lets stuff happen. Because I'd say the media members in Memphis kind of just call things as it happens. You know, of course, there's moments where people mess up and all that, but I think Penny is just trying to defend his character, which is important, right? And I really like that line. I think it was a really fun line at the end. It's, if I'm fired, I'm going to be here. Where are y'all going to be? Why am I the bad guy? Which, I mean, there's truth to that, right? He's from Binghamton, which is in the geographical center of Memphis, right? He walked campus before any of us knew his name, right? And I think that's all really cool. I think the fact that no matter what happens, whether he quits this job, gets fired from this job, he's still going to be in Memphis. He's still going to be supporting the city, supporting the university. I think all of that is really important to the story of Penny Hardaway and his connection as the coach of the University of Memphis and why he got another season, right? If John Smith is the coach and they got fired, they're going to find another job. If Penny gets fired, maybe one day he'll go try and make his way to the NBA ranks, but Penny's going to be in Memphis. And I think that's really cool that Memphis has a coach like that, because in a sense, I don't care if the team wins, but I'm from Memphis. Roman, you're from Memphis. I think it's cool when Memphis does well. And that said, another thing I want to note is Ed Scott's face during that entire thing. He looked like a proud dad. He looked like get 'em Tiger. Like Penny talked about how Penny looks at this city like a 5-year-old boy looks at his mom. Ed Scott was looking at Penny like a 5-year-old boy looks at their mom, which I think is cool because it
or how a 10-year-old girl looks at her dad.
Or a 10-year-old girl looks at her dad, right? It's to the buy-in. And right now, look, games aren't played. We won't know whether this experiment is successful for another 300 and something days, right? But Ed Scott really believes in Penny, or at least publicly facing. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but it really looks like Ed Scott really believes in Penny, and that's really cool. So that's kind of my long-winded way of saying I'm glad Penny said this. I think it's really cool that Memphis has a coach that talks like that, because and I think that's a blessing for the city, because not many coaches in the country care about the city they're in more than Penny does, and I think that's an important piece to the story.
Yeah. The one thing I'll really say about the media comments of that whole thing, because we talked about that pretty extensively after the UAB thing happened last month. I'm not really going to dive too deep into that again, but you talk about a media beef that's apparently happening between Penny and us, I suppose. And I just have to say, man, it's very one-sided if a beef does exist there. I just don't really sense anyone that, covers this team on a regular basis that's there in that facility, in that building, that actually talks to him, that has any real ill will towards him like that, and that goes out and who goes out of their way to really blast him. There are obviously people, in this local market that maybe aren't around the building and the program as much, and there's certainly some national figures that, are a bit harsh with him, probably. But in terms of people like myself, and that are around him regularly, or at least as regularly as you can be as a media member, as a journalist, considering the way that, the Memphis system works and everything. I just don't think there's, a bunch of ill will, a bunch of malice on our end. But, beyond that, it is interesting that Ed yesterday says that, one of the things that Penny needs to improve is vulnerability around others, whether that's, admitting he needs help, being able to be more open to conversations with, donors and boosters and people that support the program, what have you. Ed makes that comment yesterday, and then Penny comes out today and is, again, just as raw, emotional as we've ever seen him. I mean, there have been certain points where he's kind of acted out of character, and he's always been blunt, honest, transparent. That part's always been there, but he's just never spoken with that much, just pure, I guess, just fire, if you will. Penny has had some fire lit under him here, clearly. And that's beyond what is being said about him in the media. Which again, just to wrap that up, I don't necessarily blame him for thinking the way he does. I know a lot of people say that, it comes off as it's so tone deaf because he's clearly been coddled by the local media. And yeah, is it true that Penny Hardaway has been treated better by local media than what other coaches in his circumstances and coaches that have done what he's done would be? Yeah, probably. That's probably true. But man, he is attacked very heavily from a national standpoint. I think that's also pretty undeniable. And yeah, a lot of that is because of his shortcomings, but a lot of it is also because of who he is. And people are, sticking with their stigma nationally against, former players that are coaches. That does exist. So perhaps Penny is letting more of that side cloud his viewpoint on this whole thing. And we're the local guys, so he's going to take it out on us since the national guys aren't there for him to speak with or whatever. So I can't really blame or be frustrated with Penny for, saying what he said. But, that aside, the biggest takeaway that I have is just the pure vulnerability that he displayed with that monologue. Mm-hmm. And I'm very interested to see how it's going to be perceived moving forward, because I can definitely see it, with, driving a more positive response and getting the fan base behind him. But considering some of the other things he said and how they can be perceived, it could also draw a lot of the negative attention that he's actively fighting against in that statement, because he did say some things that are going to come off as tone deaf for sure. Like going out and claiming that this season was your best coaching job after you led the team to its worst record in 56 years. That's certainly a statement. That's certainly something that a lot of people, including myself, are going to respectfully disagree with. And a lot of others are going to not so respectfully disagree with. I'd say that last year was his best coaching job for sure. And I know that working with this roster was difficult because it wasn't the roster that Penny wanted. He more or less has said that for the entire season. He wanted PJ and Dane back. It didn't happen, and he had to work with what he had to work with. And he had guys that clearly didn't fit the culture, didn't fit the mindset of what he wanted. And that's just difficult, right? And I can see how, those challenges can make 13 wins seem more successful than what it actually is. I mean, I certainly agree that it was his hardest coaching job considering the circumstances, but a lot of those circumstances were, to be fair, created by him. He's the one who chose to wait on PJ Hagerty and Dane Danger. He's still the one that ultimately approved these players to be brought in and signed to this roster and suit up for this program, for this university, for this team. And one of the things that Ed has explicitly said that just has to improve moving forward is that Penny has to make faster decisions. Waiting for players just cannot be a thing that happens anymore. And that's actually another thing that was brought up and discussed pretty extensively during this press conference, specifically Memphis waiting and ultimately missing out on PJ Hagerty. Let's take a look there.
I think we were prepared to make PJ a very lucrative offer, right? I think Penny's been honest about this, and I said it yesterday, and I'm saying it in front of Penny Hardaway so y'all all can see it. I wish that he would have gave them a deadline by, if you don't respond back to me by a certain day, I got to move forward. Well, I think we both learned from that. I wanted PJ Hagerty back. I did. I mean, the guy's a 22, 23-point-a-game guy, right? The city loved him. Fans came out. Right, he had a good experience at Memphis. PJ won more games at Memphis than he's won anywhere else combined, if I'm not mistaken, right? And so that's the part that I think we can do better together, is where I got to say to Penny, you got to move, because if you don't move, I have to check him on that, and he's got to be okay with that, right? But I also know why he waited. So I think what we can do and what we can do is make sure that he's got the resources. What I believe Penny needs to do is make decisions on his roster immediately. And, to my satisfaction, to be completely honest, he had meetings with the players right after he met with his assistant coaches the other day. And he told them all, from my understanding, and you can correct me if I missay anything here, here's what I expect your role to be next year. Here's what I think we can offer you, because this is the type of team that I'm trying to build. And if you want to come back and be part of that, then that's great. But if you don't, you have until a certain date to let me know, because I got to build a roster.
That's exactly true.
So that's what we can do, right? I got to put a little pressure on him to be like, P, we got to move, right? That's what I call him, P, we got to go. And he's got to be willing to poop or get off the pot. And we just don't have enough time. We have 14-day window in the portal. And the other piece was when I first got here, we were working with NIL money, which was collective outside money. Where I can help him is we now control the rev share side of that. I sign all the contracts for the student athletes. And so I'm able to help him with the infrastructure and with the resources so he can make decisions quicker, which we have to do in this environment, because if we don't, we're both afraid we're going to be in the same position we were last year. So I think that's the biggest thing that we have to do. But he started that process already. And so very shortly we'll know who wants to come back and if they're willing to accept the roles that he's laid out for them.
Yeah, if I can speak on the PJ situation, I actually did that because I really wanted him to come back. And I did it for the city because I feel like the city has Calipari set a standard of winning here. That's why when he left, everybody was pissed because he had taken this thing through the roof, right? That's what we want to get back to, obviously. And I'm just referencing Cal because I waited on PJ because I knew if he stayed that we wouldn't be in a situation like we would be in right now. That's a walking bucket. That's 20-plus points a game. That's what the city loved. That's what we deserve. So that's on me for putting myself in a position, not on him, for just waiting as long as I could to just see if I could just a small chance for him to come back here and play for us again because he had success. But in the back of my mind, I also knew he had conquered the AAC in his mind, and he wanted to go show scouts that he could do it in another conference. So that's on me.
What about the part that we talked about the other day, so we can let them behind the curtain a little bit in our conversations? What do you think it would have done for your other roster pieces if you brought PJ back? Because you mentioned that.
It would have been a totally different roster because now you got your best player back, and then now you build differently. It made me wait a very long time, but again, I learned from it.
But that's the kind of conversation we had. So he said, I waited. This is, I wanted him back. And I said, well, why'd you wait so long? Not just for PJ, but I wanted him back. But if I got PJ, helps me get a big guy who wants to play with him as a point guard, right? So those are the kind of conversations when y'all asked that question earlier that we have behind the scenes to better understand his thought process. So then I have an idea of, okay, that makes sense to me, right? So PJ's one domino, but he brings other pieces with him.
PJ Hagerty remains the one who got away. It appears. I mean, that's just the way that they've talked about this whole thing all season just gives off those vibes. And I think the fact that they are still talking about this, after the entire season, after his departure is over, just goes to show where things are. And as far as, needing to speed up decisions, Penny told us towards the end of the presser today that of the 8 players that are eligible to return next year, including guys like Aaron Bradshaw, Curtis Givens III, Julius Thedford, Quante Berry, Ashton Hardaway, Rope, William Morton, Simon Majak, those are the 8. He has told all 8 of those players that you have until Friday to make a decision on whether you're staying or going. You got till Friday. Because, they have to build a roster. They have to do it quickly. They have to do it succinctly. 2-week portal window, as Ed mentioned a second ago, opens on April 7th, a week after the national championship game, or a day after the national championship game, and it's open for 2 more weeks. It closes on April 21st. Now, of course, you can still get players that are in the portal after that, but players only have those 2 weeks to enter and declare for the portal, just to make that clear. And so just like how important to you, Sam, is fast decision-making going to be for Penny this offseason? Because it seems like a real emphasis from both Ed and Penny there.
Yeah, the entire portal situation moves so fast. And if we're being honest, Roman, it's probably already moving behind closed doors, right?
Oh, it certainly
People
is,
are
yeah.
reaching out to agents. People are hitting the portal. I've seen posts of Freeze on.
Check out the
from
portal report on
Chattanooga.
X.
Yeah,
You can see it.
exactly. Freeze on from Chattanooga. That there's a bunch of talk about the kid who played at Overton High School in Memphis. He posted something about entering the portal, and of course, that's just one example. But like, guys are entering the portal, which means coaches are going to reach out, right? So, Penny, you don't even have a staff right now, so that's going to have to move quick. And I know he talked about how that's going to have to be 7 to 10 days. And in 7 to 10 days, you're going to want that locked down. And in 7 to 10 days, I guess it's not even, it's 2 days, right? Because he said Friday. Was it this Friday or next Friday for the players returning?
I think he was referring to this Friday.
Okay, so yeah, a couple days for that.
He's got 2 days.
2 days for and I know that there will be a return of multiple players. Which, side note, I think that's a good thing. I think fans are just tired of entire new rosters, so I think it's fun to have although this roster isn't entirely memorable, I think a little bit of continuity can't hurt this team, especially if that continuity is from the city of Memphis, which is something we'll definitely talk about in the next show. Considering they're just pending the decisions of those 8 players. But a lot of this sets us back up for a PJ Hagerty return to Memphis. Now, pause. Everyone in the country is going to want PJ Hagerty, right? I would be very surprised if he didn't enter the portal.
Not everyone wanted him last year, so I mean, we'll see.
Right, that's true. Now
that was coming off a season where he was a second-team All-American and led a team to a 5 seed. Now he's coming off a season where he's he put up numbers on a really, really bad team. As far as PJ returning goes, as someone who's had conversations about that in recent weeks, I mean, all I can say right now is like, don't hold your breath. Don't give up on the possibility, but don't hold your breath.
I don't know. I'd be very surprised if Penny Hardaway hasn't at least done his due diligence on it. Now, maybe due diligence came back and said no chance. But it's definitely crossed his mind because I know it's crossed everyone who heard that quote's mind.
Don't rule it out, but don't hold your breath. That's
right.
What I can say about that.
Right. And, I think there will be return of multiple players, and it's entirely it's so important to move so fast in this portal. And Penny doesn't have he doesn't have that big. I mean, he has the little general. He has Andre Turner helping him out maybe, but I think step one is a GM. I think he needs a GM to help him figure this out. And it seems Ed Scott is acting as a pseudo GM right now because they talked about all the lessons they had learned together. And I think Ed Scott imposed a couple of boundaries and rules onto Penny. And I think once the general manager gets into the building, things will move a lot smoother. So that's why I'm excited for this recruiting cycle, because things are going to move really fast. So Roman, get ready to be busy, man.
Yeah, no, I certainly will. Yes, gearing up for that right now. The fortunate thing is that since the portal doesn't technically open until the tournament, there's a bit more of a breathing period, but I'm sure that's not going to last too much longer. You talk about Penny and Ed, discussing the lessons, learned from not just this past season, but from Penny's entire tenure. And one of those lessons that we talked about earlier is just, Penny just flat out asking for help. And that was another thing he got really candid about earlier today.
Yeah, I think the vulnerability of just asking for help. I've been a guy that when I was in middle school and in high school and AAU, I did all the work. I had guys around me, but I was a offensive guy, the defensive guy. That's just what you do because I just love the game. So as a player, I had those responsibilities as a point guard to do pretty much the coach's job. My coach didn't have to work. I had to do all those things. So I think at some point during this season when I went to him, it was nothing that had to do with anybody else except for myself. Like, okay, I've been trying to do so much that it's fatiguing, and I'm missing things that I shouldn't miss and that I need to get some help. And I think that's a good thing, that eases all the ego out, no ego, and gives vulnerability to a guy that really wants to help me, who has helped me since he's been here. This administration has been there for me from day one to put me in a position to be successful. And I know that it's still on me because I'm paid to win games. So going to him, I knew that he was going to take that as, he's the type of guy that takes that as, I like that. I don't want you to try to do it by yourself. I'm here to help you. And that's why I went to him. I mean, I just talked about just the overall. I just talked about just the overall understanding of I started understanding the business of basketball more, and I let some things get away from me in the process of trying to carry wood and chop wood and carry water. Meaning I was just grinding so hard trying to get wins that I just kind of ignored some things that I should not have ignored, and it got me caught up into a situation where I am now. I feel like if we do this process 3 years ago, that we're not in this predicament right now, and that's just my inexperience and me trying to figure it out, and just be a guy that the pride of Memphis and trying to do so well for the city that I kind of got in my own way.
Do you agree with that, Sam? That Penny got his own way at certain points? Because I mean, I think when you look at his decision making in this past offseason alone, and that's something that I wrote about at the beginning of the week on my Substack. I listed 3 of the ways that Penny Hardaway directly set Memphis up for failure, and also how he can fix them. And the top 2 that I mentioned were waiting too long on PJ and Dane, which we talked about a second ago, and also just no roster retention beyond those guys. So, I mean, just setting himself up for failure, getting in his own way. I mean, that's certainly something that has happened there, and it's certainly interesting and notable that he's acknowledging that in this manner here.
Yeah, look, he talked about how he kind of connected it all back to high school and his high school coaching experience, which, yeah, like Penny Hardaway probably knows way more about basketball than an assistant high school basketball coach. So he's gonna take on every role there is, but now he's at a different level, and he kind of laid it out and blamed it on that a little bit. But then he said he blamed it kind of on the inexperience. And Roman, I don't know, but 8 years of on-the-job training feels like a tough spot to blame inexperience or blame being new to the job. But I think at the same time, you got to credit the level of accountability there, the level of self-introspection, because look, we talked about the way he's talking is finding that. Look, it's like a breakup, right? It's like a high school breakup movie where the boyfriend does something really bad, and then, which of course was this one-off season, and then he has to go to therapy and do self-introspection and prove his worth to the girlfriend, right? I think we've seen that in a lot of Disney movies. And right now, Penny is doing this. He's taking the steps to understand why he failed, which I think is really cool. He's understanding what needs to be better. And I think moving quickly is a really big thing to that. Now, Roman, we've played a lot of clips here today, and I think this is like, because you talked about this might be monumental to the Penny Hardaway experience, because either everything he's saying either sets him up to be fired or sets him up for a couple more years, right? Because either he makes the changes and this season goes well, or this coming season goes well, and if this coming season goes well, the odds are the next few will as well, right? But of course, if it goes poorly, he's fired. So that means this speech is monumental. So there's one of 2 options. Either Memphis fans look at this and call this the Penny presser. They call this the Penny speech. You can even look at this 4 years from now and be like, yep, that was the day where Penny Hardaway publicly talked about the fire that was lit under him after this bad season. And the narrative is going to spin from how a detrimental season made Penny Hardaway the best coach he's ever been, right? It's either that or how Penny Hardaway talked out of his butt to try and get one more season and everything failed, right? And that's the only 2 narratives that are going to come out of this. So I think it's really cool that we're talking about this presser as extensively as we are, because it's just entirely monumental.
Yeah, no, for sure. The groundwork has certainly been laid out here. It's been made very clear by everything we've heard and what we've learned in the past 72 hours and what Penny and Ed have said in that time, what just needs to happen. And it seems like Penny Hardaway has a better understanding of that than anybody. So this offseason will, as we alluded to already, it will progress very quickly. We will learn a lot very, very soon. The roster rebuild will start before too long. The coaching staff could very well be in place by the next time we are here next Wednesday, if everything goes to plan there for Penny and Ed in the program. So it will be very interesting to see how this critical offseason continues to carry out. But yeah, it certainly got off to a bang since we've been discussing it for over an hour now. But real quickly before we get out of here, Sam, we actually did get a bit of football news earlier today as well. They announced that their spring event, no, not the spring game, but their spring event is going to happen on April 18th at 3 o'clock inside Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. Now, I do not think the renovations will be quite done by that time, so I still would not expect the fully renovated stadium to be able to be experienced and unveiled until the beginning of the season. But more and more colleges have been moving towards the spring event, spring practice sort of thing, instead of an annual tradition spring game. And it seems like Memphis is moving in that direction now under Charles Huff in his first year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to report about this, Roman. I think it's free. It's open to the public. I think if Tigers fans, because of course there wasn't much continuity on this team, you have an entire new roster with a new coach. It's fun to be around the team and invest in them because they're going to try and invest in the city. So free, open to the public. There's free parking down there too. That's about all I have. I think the only interesting narrative will be, what does the stadium look like? Are they going to block off sections? Or are they going to maybe make some VIP sections available for their top dollar folks? I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then, because of course it won't be a game, but it will be fun to see Marcus Stokes and Aaron Nolan throw the ball around, although it won't tell us anything about how that battle's going. But it's just going to be fun to see them in the Tiger stripes and the Tiger blue, and that's about it. There's not much else that's going to come out of this.
Yeah. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of On Beat with BCM. We are going to be here once again next week live at 7. And by the time, like I already said, I'm sure there will be even more developments on the basketball side that will need to be discussed. And we'll see what else comes out of the next week as we enter into full offseason mode here on Beat with BCM. But thank you all for tuning in once again. Be sure to do so again next week right here at 7 on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel or X account. But for Sam Shoemaker and everyone else here on the Bluff City Media Network, this is Roman Cleary signing out.
Thank you for listening to this episode of On Beat with BCM. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to the Bluff City Media YouTube page. We'll see you back here next time.